Welcome to today's Career Development webinar, Get Picked Using Conference Presentations to Advance Your Career. I'm Katie DeBeer, Associate Director for Professional and Volunteer Services with the UMass Amherst Alumni Association, and I'll be the host for today's session. Without further ado, I'm very excited to introduce our expert presenters. David Pittlick, class of '81, is an expert storyteller and award-winning writer who transforms industry and technical jargon into engaging, impactful language. With years of experience creating speaker proposals, he has helped hundreds of experts secure speaking roles at regional, national, and international conferences. Putting words in the mouths of clients comes easily to David, having spent 17 years as a network television comedy writer. Aurora Gregory has helped some of the biggest brands in business to get their message right, develop marketing strategies, and create communications programs that connect with target audiences. She's a successful communications trainer, helping people develop skills to deliver their most important messages to customers, media outlets, and presentation audiences. She has placed hundreds of speakers at local, national, and international conferences. David and Aurora recently co-authored Get Picked, Tips, Tricks, and Tools for Creating Irresistible Speaker Proposals. You can learn more or order the book at getpickedtospeak.com. I want to thank Aurora and David both for sharing their expertise with us today, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to them.
We're looking so forward to sharing some great content that we hope is going to help you move your conference speaking goals and objectives forward. We wanted to say up front that this particular presentation is going to be focused on having you land yourself as a conference speaker in an unpaid speaking situation. While the things that we're going to share are not necessarily geared towards helping you jumpstart a paid speaking career, they certainly won't hurt. And so we'll hope that if becoming a paid speaker is one of your goals, that you'll pay close attention and be able to glean some of the tips from what we'll be sharing tonight. I'm sure that all of us want to be able to see our careers grow, want to be able to expand our businesses if we're entrepreneurs or small business or even large business owners. And for some of us on the line, we might also have a motivational message that we'd like to see exposed to a larger audience. One of the things that David and I have done over the years is helped our clients achieve those exact goals. The things that we've done have come from having spent 10+ years of writing speaker proposals for clients. Our book is the result of creating that secret sauce that we've used to land speakers in some of the biggest conferences in the country. So we hope that if the material you hear tonight is of interest to you, you'll take a look at the book. For most of us, we're still kind of working on our professional careers, and the thing that we keep hearing repeatedly is that while hard skills are still very much in demand, it's the soft skills like oral and written communication and presentation skills that are becoming more and more in demand and are being more and more sought after by companies as they evaluate candidates. I thought this particular statistic was particularly interesting, that 80% of employers are looking for some evidence of leadership skills on a candidate's resume. And really, there's not a skill or an activity that demonstrates leadership more highly or more strongly than public speaking. So if it's not something that you're doing a lot of, if it's not something that you've considered doing or haven't done, maybe because of a fear of public speaking, it's just too far outside your comfort zone, I hope that you'll take another look at it and consider adding it to your kind of personal branding toolkit, because more and more it is what's going to be used as evidence of your leadership ability in the workplace. Your role as a public speaker allows you to showcase your skills and expertise. It positions you as a thought leader, and it raises your profile in a way that many other activities don't. And there's probably not any other networking activity that's as effective as public speaking, because you're actually getting a chance to network almost en masse. You're networking with dozens, hundreds, and in some cases thousands of people all at the same time by the sheer fact that you are on the stage. And really, in so many cases, your next employment opportunity could be sitting in the audience. So you almost have the chance to give an initial interview, if you will, from the stage. One of the hardest things, I think, for a lot of people is once they kind of get their head kind of wrapped around the fact that they'd like to speak, is where to find opportunities. Where's the podium that I'm supposed to stand behind? If building your career is what you're interested in doing, then we would strongly encourage you to look at your professional associations for conferences that are really focused on presenting peer-to-peer education. This would be your chance to share your expertise, your knowledge with people like you and be able to encourage them to grow in their own careers. If you are a finance professional, you might belong to the Association for Financial Professionals. If you're a nurse, perhaps the American Nurses Association. All of these associations have conferences, and they're constantly looking for speakers from their peer group that can come in and share their expertise. If growing your business is your focus, you're looking really for customers and referral sources. The kinds of events that you want to be looking towards are events where your customers gather to network, where they come to hear about new solutions, new resources. Maybe it's industry trade associations. It might be local or regional state chambers of commerce, for instance. But anywhere your customer group gathers is where you're going to want to look to find a podium. And then finally, if you have a message, if you're a motivational speaker, you might even perhaps be a speaker who speaks from your church, and you're looking for a wider audience for the message that you have to serve. You're going to want to really focus in on the target audience that you're trying to reach, and then determine where those audiences meet. It may be church conferences, it might be education venues, they may be local, regional, or state events. But with this particular type of message, you're going to want to define your message even more narrowly so that you can determine your target audience more specifically. Now, once you've got the type of growth that you're looking to achieve, you're going to need some tools to try to find out the conferences that are available to you. This is a great list that we use when we're trying to source up events for some of our clients. Of this list, I'd say the two that are some of my favorites are Lanyard and Speaker Hub. They regularly are kind of canvassing local, national, and international events for speaker events that can be pitched and where they're looking for speakers to submit their proposals. All of these are great, but Lanyard and Speaker Hub are two of our favorites. So once you've got your eye on a conference or an event you want to speak at, now what? What do you do then once you've got your event kind of identified? Nearly every conference will execute what they describe as a call for speakers to solicit speaker proposals. This is where they put forward all of the rules and guidelines that they have for how they want to receive their speaker proposals, what they're looking for, how long they want them to be. All of that is included in the call for speakers. And within the rules, you need to do everything that you can do to stand out from the crowd because it's a competition. And your goal is to win a spot on the agenda as a speaker. There are going to be lots of people who are also going to be putting in their submission for a speaking spot on the agenda. And the truth is there are only so many spots. So your goal is to make sure that you stand out. Over the years, David and I have developed 5 key characteristics of a really strong speaker proposal. We call it the 5 must-dos of an irresistible speaker proposal, and we're going to run through them for you. We want you to pay some close attention. Our goal is to give you some very practical tips so that if you're getting ready to submit a speaker proposal or if you're looking to one in the next several months or even into 2017, you'll have some practical application that you can take with you. You need to be able to focus on your topic, your title, the story you have to tell, the journey that you've been on, and then your results, tooting your own horn. So let's start with your topic. The first thing that you've got to remember is that you can't bore people. You can't be boring. Agendas at every conference are all vying for the attention of the attendees. So your topic has got to be a hot one. What makes a hot topic? if you're in industry, if you're in business, even if you're looking to grow your own particular business, your own entrepreneurial venture, it's what keeps people up at night. Maybe it's conversations you're having with coworkers, or maybe it's something new that's happening, a new technology that's come onto the scene, and perhaps you've developed a new way to use it. Maybe you've developed a new way to use an old technology. That would be considered a hot topic. Sometimes controversy is what makes for a hot topic. David and I do a fair amount of work in the financial services business sector, and in that area, regulatory issues have been controversial for the last 15 years, and so often regulatory issues become hot topics. And then always a great case study, a success story. Did you become a rock star at work using, through your work on a particular project or initiative? Did you and your team save your company $6 million over the course of a year by doing something differently? That would be a great hot topic, and it's a great story to be able to share at a conference. So to stand out, your topic has got to be intriguing and compelling. Every conference program wants an educational and informative agenda for its audience. So what you do with your speaker proposal and what you do with your topic demonstrates that you can contribute to the goal that the conference has, which is to put forward a great agenda for their audience. I'm going to turn this over to David now, and he's going to talk a little bit about some other elements that go into a great speaker proposal.
Thank you, Aurora, and thank you, Katie. Before I get started, I just want to talk a little bit about my experience at UMass. I'm really delighted to be talking to fellow alumni. Just sort of a real honor for me. And it just made me, as I was thinking about today, it made me think about my greatest regret from UMass was, and mind you, this was back in the late 70s. So there was an institution on campus called the Blue Wall. I think it's still there. At the time, it was I think it was a bar. It was sort of a dark and dingy place, and I didn't frequent that place too often, but I did. I remember one time seeing an advertisement for a band that was going to be playing there, and the name of the band was just so stupid. I thought, I'm never going to go see those guys. So I passed up on it, and that band was the Talking Heads, and that was one of my favorite bands, and I really kicked myself all these years later that they were playing in our local bar, in our little pub. So anyway, but that's not what I'm here to talk to you about. What I'm here to talk about is speaker proposals. The first thing we want to talk about was the title, and that really is important. Improving your odds of having your proposal selected means that you've got to make every aspect of this submission stand out. The first thing a review committee is going to read is your submission title, and this is your opportunity to be bold and grab their attention. So a catchy title is a great way to stand out apart from the crowd. The old adage, don't judge a book by its cover. That may be true for books, but in the case of your speaker submission, the title's the first thing that you're going to be judged by. So I really recommend that you put some real thought into this. It's really critically important. It's a critically important piece of copy. Some people will look at it as sort of a perfunctory element, but your title's a signpost that announces, get ready, there are great things to come. So your goal is, be clever, be creative, and be interesting. But it's also, you don't want to get too wrapped up in creative. You got to remember, keep in mind that your title has to be first and foremost. It's got to communicate what the real issue is that you're going to be discussing and the insights that the audience is going to take away from your presentation. One last point I want to make about the title is oftentimes you're going to be limited by a word count. So you're going to have to build drama and interest, but do it in a very, very concise way. There's a real art to this. It's not easy, but if you take the time to craft a winning title, I can tell you from past experience, that can make all the difference in being accepted or rejected. In any case, just to give you an example of a couple titles, and I wish it was on the screen, but sort of a utilitarian title might be how businesses are combating electronic payment fraud. A catchier version of that is kicking electronic payment fraudsters to the curb. Let me give you another example. Learning to go with the flow. That doesn't really say very much. A more catchy title might be Embrace the Chaos and Exercise in Making the Most of Randomness. Last example, Educational Teaching Techniques for the Modern Classroom. There's nothing wrong with that title, but you know, a better, more intriguing title would be How I Cured Nose Picking with Duct Tape and Other Crazy Ideas. And that's a real title from an actual presentation. A couple additional points that I'd like to mention. Be sure your title and your session description are consistent. They should both be telling the same story, very important. And don't forget you are competing for a coveted speaking slot, so your title is your first opportunity to make a case for why you should be selected to speak. And lastly, beyond grabbing the attention of the selection committee, your title is important because it's also used to entice attendees to add your session to the conference schedule. So the title does double duty there. The next most important thing is telling your story. When you're developing your session description, you know, you need to think story. And before I go any further, let me define what a story is. By the way, we go into a lot more detail on this in the book, but for our purposes today, I'll keep it pretty simple. We all know what a story is. We know it when we hear it, we know it when we see it, but actually defining it is a little bit trickier. Here's a really simple definition that I like. Story is a narrative about a character overcoming some obstacle to achieve an important goal. And by the way, that's pretty much the basis for all well-constructed stories. Now, that's all well and good, but you're probably asking yourself, how do I apply this to a speaker proposal? Think of it this way. Your session proposal should describe the beginning, middle, and end of your experience. Start by setting up the challenges that you, and by extension, the audience face. Then paint a compelling picture of how those problems were addressed. What did you do to solve them? Finally, describe what you accomplished and how what you did has had a measurable impact. That's your story. Perhaps the hardest part of creating a winning speaker proposal is squeezing all your thoughts into a short word limit. That basically means being impactful, compelling, and most importantly, concise. It's important to remember that you don't need to include the granular details. You only need to hit the high points. The nitty-gritty is the thing you're going to cover when you get to your actual presentation once you've been selected. Now, when you're thinking about your proposal, ask yourself these two simple questions. Why is this an important topic to cover? And what will make attendees clamor to hear my take on it? If you can answer those questions, then you'll be well on your way to developing a can't-miss session description that's worthy of selection. To recap, be sure your session proposal communicates the story you plan to share with your audience. A well-thought-out proposal demonstrates that you've carefully thought your presentation through. And that's precisely what a selection committee is looking for when they're evaluating submissions. They want to know you've done your homework, they want to know you're serious, and they really want to know you're committed to delivering a fantastic presentation. The next thing I'd like to talk about is highlighting your journey. You know, it's important to remember you want to communicate what attendees will take away from your session. A common mistake that many people make is to focus solely on their own accomplishments. Now, while it may seem like semantics, you can adjust this by simply shifting the language from here's what I learned to here's what attendees will learn. And this makes a very big difference in the eyes of the folks who are reviewing your submission. If they feel you are focusing on the audience and what the audience will take away, you are going to be in much better standing with them in terms of them making a determination about your session. So when you're talking about your journey, you need to focus on what you did that others can learn from. Your goal is to demonstrate the depth of your presentation. Be sure to highlight innovations, what's new or creative. For instance, if you've developed a new process, I think Aurora kind of covered some of this, but if you've innovated a new use of technology, found a unique way to solve a problem. You'll want to touch on these. Of course, you'll have to keep it very short. You know, with a limited word count, you won't have room to go into too much detail, but that said, you still want to include enough specifics so the selection committee understands the depth of what you'll be sharing with the audience. Let's see. It's important to include insights that attendees can apply to their own business. That's why they're there. And this is the secret sauce everyone came to learn about. So you want to be sure to keep your write-up broad enough so it appeals to a wide range of audience members. The broader the topic, the more likely it is to get picked. Those two things are really important. Now, if you want your proposal to stand out, I'm always struggling with the advancing the slide thing. If you want your proposal to stand out, make your journey clear. It's the road you took that will be most interesting to a review committee and ultimately to the audience. Now, we say toot your own horn. Now, every good story has an ending. The same can be said for your speaker submission. Wrap up your session description with any results you've achieved. Don't be shy. There's nothing wrong with tooting your own horn a little bit, so long as you're not making a sales pitch, and that's really important because most conferences don't permit any kind of selling products, services, so you've got to, you know, make sure you stay away from that. But it's okay to toot your own horn. In fact, everyone really loves a winner. So that's why it's important to include the results in your proposal. Your audience wants to know how you were successful. They want to know how to do their jobs better. They want to know how to achieve the goals that might be previously unattainable. So your successes are successes they're hoping to replicate. They want to learn about it, maybe how to use a new process, how to improve their lives, how to strengthen their relationships. This is the big payoff to your proposal. What you've accomplished, the steps you've taken to achieve the success is what will attract attendees to your session in the first place. So you really do want to include those successes. To stand out, you want your proposal to include key performance metrics. Your success points could very well be the difference between having your proposal rejected or accepted. And with that, I will hand it back to Aurora to take us down the home stretch.
We wanted to give you a couple of key reminders, things that are important for you to remember, and if you don't take anything away from your time with us, we want you to remember these things. You need to sweat the small stuff when it comes to responding to a call for speakers. Ignoring the rules is essentially thumbing your nose at the committee. They spend an awful lot of time trying to figure out how to organize their call for speakers. So follow the rules and you should do just fine. The other thing that we can't encourage you to do enough is to proof your proposal before you submit it. Typos and poor grammar are, again, another way to let people know that you just didn't take the time to make sure it was perfect before you submitted it. Proof it well, get someone else to proof it for you, but really take the time to make sure it's just perfect, all I's dotted and T's crossed. And then use every opportunity in the submission that the submission board provides you to highlight what you have to offer. In some call for speaker proposals, you'll find things that that ask for learning objectives or key highlights that they want you to call out, in addition to the summary of the session that you're providing. Use those opportunities to expound on the value that you have to bring to an audience. Don't leave them blank. If you're struggling with how to come up with some additional words, brainstorm it with a colleague. But don't leave those fields blank. We've seen speakers miss out on opportunities because they left those sections blank, whereas another speaker with maybe a similar topic filled them in, and the conference ended up selecting the other speaker. And then we want you to remember this, that each and every time you step behind a microphone, your goal and your job is to educate and inform your audience. You have expertise that they have come to hear, and so you should feel very confident when you step up to that microphone because you have something of value to share. And by your mere presence at that microphone, you confirm and you affirm that you are an expert and that you are a thought leader, and that what you have to say is worth listening to, and that your audience has reason to pay attention and to take note. Remember that answering a call for speakers, submitting a proposal for a conference, even if you're doing something at a smaller, say, local or state or regional event, is a competition. Many submit, but few are chosen. So make every effort to stand out using things like your title and your topic and the strength of your write-up to make sure that you stand out. Make sure that your topic educates your audience but also supports your professional goals. It's certainly important to make sure that you demonstrate that you are an expert, but if you have a particular goal, say to make your expertise in a particular area more well known, then shape your topic so that it allows you to do that while still providing value to your audience. Story is so important. You want to be able to let this selection committee know that you are there to tell a story that is going to have a payoff for the audience, that's going to let them know that they can duplicate what you have accomplished. Use your best creativity, and I always like to say, if you don't feel that you are particularly creative, invite other people into your process. Sometimes you need to brainstorm a little bit with some other minds to bring some of that creative energy forward. And the last thing that we have to tell you is don't wait until the last minute. Rush jobs rarely go well, and we can tell you from our own experience of working with clients that when we wait until the last minute, when our clients rush at us wanting to make a deadline, it's always an experience that at the end of it, we can say we got there, but it's rarely the quality experience that it should have been. And so research your call for speakers early. Once you know that the deadlines are presented, make sure that you get started right away. And that way you're not pulling all-nighters. None of us wants to return to that season of life. And then once you land a speaking gig, once you've been accepted to a conference, the thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that you merchandise it. You need to make sure that it's known. So update, update, update. LinkedIn loves updates. So use speaking opportunities that you've landed as fodder for your LinkedIn profile page, for updates that you can list there. That's the place for things like this, for us to be able to showcase amongst our peers that we've been, very carefully cultivating those LinkedIn connections. Use these professional wins to update there especially. If there's an opportunity or a place and it's appropriate on your resume, list it there. If you have listings in other with professional associations and you have a profile, list your speaking opportunities there. And merchandise them and update internally. Let your manager know, I was selected to speak at this conference. It's important that you merchandise within your current job situation as well as looking forward to, say, a future opportunity. And then once the session is over, share your slides. Share it with your peers and colleagues in your current workplace. If it's appropriate and allowed through your current employer, post them on SlideShare. Lots of people go to SlideShare to look for decks that contain learning and information that they want to know. So use SlideShare to your advantage. And then don't forget the best thing, the best part of a good old-fashioned email. Send some emails to some content, to some contacts, to mentors, to those that you're looking to get connected with. If you happen to know that certain people are going to be at a conference, email them and let them know you'll be presenting. And then after the conference, invariably you'll have people that will be coming up to you, wanting to talk with you about your session, to ask you questions, exchange those business cards, and then make contact with them after the conference is over. Let them know that you were pleased that they came to the session and that you hope that they learned something from you. This is one of our favorite quotes. It comes from a man named Peter Shankman. He's a marketing guru and a corporate keynote speaker, and he says, if you know your stuff, you should be on stage because people believe people on stage. All of you on this call, all of you listening to the replay, you know your stuff. You've done well in your jobs. You're growing in your careers. you should be on stage. Public speaking, speaking at conferences and events should be something that you should be looking to raise your profile, to grow your careers, to expand your network, to move a message that you have forward. If you're in business, to grow your business. Take your expertise to a stage, and it will undoubtedly grow your network and your exposure. And I think that's something that we'd all like to see for our careers. We have watched public speaking transform people's careers. We have one anecdotal story for a client that we worked for. She submitted proposals repeatedly for one particular conference, got picked more often than not, and then the situation came about where her company was acquired. And as the new company, this new merged company was, kind of sourcing and figuring out who was going to get kept and who they were going to let go in the duplication of responsibilities and roles. One of the things that was shared with her as to why she was kept was how well she did in making sure that what she shared with the industry was well known. And so we jokingly like to say that we helped her save her job. We know that that's not directly true, but we know that her willingness to get out there and speak about her experiences and her successes raised her profile in the industry, and so she was well known in this very unique situation and was able to demonstrate her value. So we can't encourage you enough to take public speaking seriously and to look for opportunities to get out there. So that ends the formal part of what we have to share. And Katie, I'm not sure if there's some questions that we can answer, but we sure would love to hear any questions that are coming in from the folks on the line.
Sure, and for everyone on, if you do have questions as we're going through this, feel free to use that chat function and send them directly to me, and I'll just be moderating with our presenters. So the first question we have is, all of my work is in services with Silicon Valley clients, and it's all confidential. As such, I can't share anything about the work I do. I have a lot of experience presenting to clients, but really struggle to find content that I can present because it's all proprietary. Do you have any hints on thinking outside of this box?
That's an interesting and I think common situation. I think what you might want to do is take on topic areas that don't necessarily describe who you're doing what you're doing for or the specifics of it, but maybe the process that you use in approaching, say, client projects. Have you developed a method that allows you to successfully move projects forward? Perhaps you've developed a strategy around how to untangle difficult problems. I'd love to see you take on the more strategic topic area of how you do your job, not necessarily who you do it for or the specifics around it. So that it might be around project management. I could see something, around, what to do when your project is top secret, and see you share some best practices around that. I'm sure that could be really interesting. But I think the more how you approach your job might be a great way for you to approach finding some opportunities to speak outside of your, client and work environment.
Great. We have another question that's asking, how do you balance the need to have a hot topic with the desire to have a unique topic in your presentation proposal and make sure that it's not something too common?
David, that reminds me of our clients who had just kind of a real bent on wanting to talk about something that was a common product in their industry, but it had been used for such a long time that it had become rather pedestrian. So I think what you might want to do is focus on any unique uses of that product or that strategy. If there's a unique way of using something old, a new way, everything, what's the song, everything old is new again. If you can find that new twist on that, I think that's important. The other thing is to look at perhaps a conference speaking opportunity that is a little bit more for, say, maybe an entry-level type of audience. A couple of the conferences that David and I work on have what they call pre-conference workshops, and they're definitely more of the basics of this particular industry space. And it's 2 days of workshops, and it really kind of focuses on the basics. But the people who present at them are, you know, senior-level people, seasoned professionals. So that might also be an opportunity for you as well to be able to, you know, kind of position your presentation as, say, a primer for those that are new to the industry or to the space. I hope that helps.
Can I just add something there? I would say, you know, we talk about a hot topic, but I don't think that's necessarily, you know, a mandatory thing. I think if it's a unique idea, you know, and it's something that the audience would really be interested in, I think it would have, you know, every bit a good chance of getting picked. You know, the conference selection committee is laser focused on their audience and what they can bring to them that will attract them, will, you know, deliver value for them. So I think hot, you know, we use that word hot topic, it's a little bit of a buzzword. I think if it's a unique topic or a really interesting spin on maybe you know, some traditional thing or process or whatever, I think that will definitely break through. I don't see why it wouldn't.
Great. We have another question, which is, my company has many internal conferences and trainings. Would pitching a presentation for internal conferences be any different than for more typical industry conferences? And if so, what would you recommend in terms of the proposal?
Wow, that's really interesting. You know, I would encourage you to reach out to who the organizers of that conference to find out if they have a particular process that they follow. Is there kind of an internal call for speakers? If there isn't, I would definitely use kind of the format that David and I have kind of shared with you tonight. And I'd be willing to bet you will really, you know, raise heads with what you've put together. I think using this for an internal, you know, seminar series or other type of opportunity that's within your organization, I don't see why this wouldn't work. I think it would definitely showcase that you've really thought through what you have to offer your peers and colleagues.
Great. We have, I guess, a couple of similar or related questions. One asking about changing industries. So if I've changed industries recently and I'm well known in my former industry, how can I build a presence in my new industry? And then in a sort of related question is about sort of where to start if you don't yet have, I guess, that stature and you're not yet well known. So I don't know if you want to sort of answer those together.
You know, I think the answer to both of those is actually kind of similar. One of the things that we do a lot of is encourage clients to match up with a co-presenter. So, for instance, again, we do a lot of work in financial services, and no one wants to come to a financial services convention and hear a bunch of banks talk about what they do. What they do want to hear about are people that work for corporations who use banks. And so what they do is the bank will invite one of their clients to present with them and showcase their story and their work with that particular organization. So if you're new to your industry or just newer in your field, I would look for opportunities to co-present with maybe a colleague or a peer, maybe within your organization who has experience that's a little deeper, and the two of you can pair up and submit a proposal together. It's very rare that a call for proposals asks for just one speaker. Invariably, they will have room on the submission form for 2 or 3, and depending on your topic, possibly 4 speakers. So I would pair up with someone who's a little farther ahead than you or a little deeper in the industry and see if there's a topic the two of you can come up with together, and that would give you the chance to co-present and be able to raise your profile and become a little bit better known in your space.
That's great. And another question, I guess, for folks starting out, if there are any resources that you recommend for someone who might be less confident in their speaking abilities?
There's a couple of resources that I would suggest, and if you're not feeling super confident about your public speaking skills, definitely invest some time in bringing those up. One of my favorite ones is Toastmasters. Toastmasters is an international organization, and their full goal is to help people improve their public speaking skills. Toastmasters has clubs across the United States, and they're free. And they meet at various times. There are clubs that meet in the morning, at lunchtime, in the evening, and you can go to Toastmasters.com and search for a club near you based on your zip code. And I can't encourage you enough. I think Toastmasters is a great resource. The fact that it's free is even better. And everyone who comes is looking to improve their skills. So you'll have opportunities to present in a smaller setting with people who are working to learn just like you are, and who will give you immediate feedback. I would also, consider finding small groups of colleagues or friends that you can practice in front of and ask them to give you that feedback. More than anything else, what helps people with their public speaking is actually speaking. It's a little bit like a muscle, and you've got to exercise it in order for it to get strong.
Great. We have another question asking if there's a major conference that you've submitted a proposal for repeatedly and it has been declined, is there a tactful way to go about getting feedback on what you might change to make your proposal more appealing if it seems, specifically that your topic hasn't been of interest to them?
Wow. David, how many times have we had to deal with that question, right?
Oh, my God.
It's really hard to be rejected, I have to say. It's especially if as the person who's asked the question, if it's been repeated, it's really hard. The most tactful way, I think, is really the most direct way. I've submitted several times and don't seem to be getting selected. Is there any feedback or guidance you can give me specifically about my last presentation or about my last submission that would help me, prepare something better? I would also make sure that you do your research ahead of responding to the call for speakers. The number of conferences will put out maybe what they would call their, their topics of interest. It's usually a really long list, and there's, most of the time it's just everything under the sun. But see if you can find your topic in there. The other thing is take a look at your submission and maybe run it through the filter of some of what we've shared. Is there a way that you can make a twist on how you wrote up your proposal so that it is more focused on what your audience will glean from having listened in on your session? Is there a way to make it a little bit more interesting and a little bit more enticing? Could you bring in a co-presenter to maybe amplify the topic a little bit better, to bring it up a notch? Invariably, in the conferences that David and I have worked on, we have submitted similar topics for, say, similar clients, but one has a much better co-presenter, maybe a sexier brand, as opposed to someone who comes in with no co-presenter or a brand that's not as well known, and sometimes that can be the difference. The other thing, and this is always a hard one to take, is that sometimes really good proposals just don't get picked. It can be really challenging for that conference. For the conference, they've only got so many slots to fill, and that's why we say it's a competition. And invariably there are great submissions that there's just not room for. Now, those great submissions, they get held on to, because we've also had the experience where, a conference has kind of gone along in their calendar, their conference is approaching, and maybe a session presenter that had committed to coming now can't come, and they will go to that list of great proposals that they didn't pick and invite a speaker to come on and present anyway, now that they've got this open slot. So I would do those things, and I would just very tactfully send a note to the conference and ask them. You may not get a response, and so if you don't, I would definitely use our filters here to kind of run your proposal through it and see if it kind of checks off on some of these boxes, and see if there's some ways you can strengthen it on your own.
I would just add to that, you know, I think reaching out to the conference is really not a bad idea. You know, sometimes they will actually respond and tell you, there were a couple things about this submission that we really liked and a couple things we didn't, and they may even give you the chance to revise it. That is a situation we've been in before. The last suggestion I would make is, take a look, go to the website for the conference. Many of them will list the conference speakers from the previous year. And oftentimes the session descriptions are actually taken from the speaker proposals. And you can take a look and see what the winners did, and just sort of match that up to what you've been doing and see if you can, figure out what it is that their sort of secret to success there. And you may just discover that the differences are very minor, and that you can kind of tweak what you've been doing and turn it into a winner.
Great. And it looks like we have one more question, which is about, I guess, reusing presentations. So I've been working on my presentations outside of my actual job. Is there a recommended number of times that I could give the same presentation at different conferences?
Oh, that's such a great question. I'm chuckling a little bit because we have a former colleague that I think has been giving the same presentation at the same conference for easily 12 years. I think he updates it, but it's essentially the same presentation. It happens to be a primer type topic. But I think as long as the topic is relevant to the industry, there probably isn't. I think what you want to make sure that you do is make sure that you keep it updated, that if there are new developments that you include those in your slides, and that certainly that you make an effort to update graphics, presentations, things advance along. So just make sure that your presentation doesn't seem dated. But I think as long as the topic is still relevant, there's probably not a reason why you couldn't keep using it.
And that's another situation where if you bring in another speaker, you can sort of add a new spin to it, maybe take a slightly different perspective on the topic, essentially telling the same, talk, but just sort of, giving it a little fresh coat of paint. So I don't see why not. If it's a winner and it's a good topic, you certainly can reuse it.
Great, and I'm going to go ahead and take the controls back. I do have just a couple more closing remarks. So first, I want to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar hosted by the UMass Amherst Alumni Association. I especially want to thank Aurora and David for this really informative and interesting session. If you're interested in learning more on this topic, you can find their book that's titled Get Picked, Tips, Tricks, and Tools for Creating an Irresistible Speaker Proposal at getpickedtospeak.com. I do also want to let you know about a few of the other career resources that the Alumni Association offers to you. We have the Alumni Advisor Network, which is an online networking and mentoring platform connecting you with alumni in your field for career advice, informational interviews, resume feedback, and mock interviews. We have career counseling and coaching offered at discounted rates from alumni career counselors and coaches with a variety of specializations. We do offer events and programs throughout the year around the country where you can network with fellow alumni and meet new people in your industry. You can view our upcoming events at umassalumni.com/events. We also have a new service, Career Connect, which provides access to job postings ranging from entry-level to senior executive. And while there are many sites on the internet to view job postings, Career Connect jobs are specifically targeting UMass Amherst alumni and students, so that's a great resource to check out. And we also have Career Beam, which is a subscription service that we provide. It's a comprehensive career development tool offering self-assessment tools, resume resources, interview prep, company and industry databases, and job postings, and more. So to learn more about our career resources that are available to you, you can visit us online at umassalumni.com and look for career development in the top navigation. We will be sending a link to the very brief participant survey where you can share your feedback on today's presentation in a follow-up email, along with a recording of this webinar, which will also be posted to our YouTube channel in the coming week. If you have ideas for topics you'd like to see us cover in future programs, please be sure to include them in your survey response or email them to our office, alumni@admin.umass.edu. One more time, I want to thank our presenters and thank each of you for joining us for our Career Development webinar. Have a great evening and go UMass.